You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here, Jim.
Do we have a special offer for our listeners?
Yeah, let's do the 50% off for new subscribers, promo code 2022 half off. Go to VRTrader.com. That's VRTrader.com. And in the promo code slot, enter the 2022 half off, and you get half off for any newsletter, for any time frame you specify. And I also like to make that disclaimer about not being a financial advisor nor providing financial advice. I just produce the educational newsletter, VR Traders, actually Leibovit VR newsletters. We've got about half a dozen of them up on the screen when you go to the website, from metals and resources all the way to crypto, Bitcoin, and cannabis. So we cover the markets as best we can.
The stock markets have been hitting new highs since President Trump was reelected. Is this rally going to continue for a long time, or will it come to an abrupt halt?
Well, there's so many variables out there, Jim. You've got just a recent story in the last couple of days how the Democrats, Joe Biden's administration, suddenly approved sending U.S. weapons to Ukraine that are being used in Russia, and we've had sort of a World War III underway for quite some time. It's just not talked about. I mean, you've got on many fronts stuff going on, and this was really stupid act, and it's unfortunate because you got crazy people, in the U.S. government and or military who are very, warmongering individuals and a little mentally ill, in my opinion. So, Putin's already made a statement that he can't wait till Trump gets in to try to negotiate a settlement of some kind. So why would these idiots in the Biden administration do anything to provoke anything or change anything within a couple months of a new president coming in? So when you say, well, what could unearth the rally here and create a problem? I mean, some outlier event, in war, I guess, certainly could do it. So hopefully that doesn't happen. My gut feeling is Putin will probably restrain himself, even though this missile's coming his way, until Trump gets in and Trump can hopefully negotiate some type of settlement over there. But basically the stock market itself, it's a tidal wave of positive with Trump being in there. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. I mean, it's really super positive. A lot of programs that he's hoping to enact, we'll see what is enacted, but very good for the economy, very good for interest rates, very good for taxes. It just, the possibility of much, much higher stock prices in a more business-oriented, non-Marxist economy or leadership is going to be just overall very bullish. So, again, there's always outlier events of some kind. We could talk about geocosmic stuff like solar flares or something crazy like that, or some outlier event we can't predict. Like we had the COVID thing back in 2020. I mean, there's always something I suppose could happen, but just on a pure economic basis, it's really a positive. There's a lot of talk about the effect of Trump's planned tariffs, which are being, in my opinion, widely misrepresented. Economists, frankly, have been asleep, with regard to the fact that what tariffs will do or help or hurt our economy. My feeling is producers abroad will lower their prices, and the tariffs will probably be focused on foreign companies instead of old goods. So, the effect should be positive. I saw some commercials prior to the election. Oh, I'm not going to vote for Trump because tariffs are going to come in and it's going to create inflation. Well, it's a false statement because that's not the case. It'll be focusing on specific companies. It would also encourage companies to move their operations back into North America. out of perhaps Mexico and other places, and and out of China in particular, since so much is produced in China. So it's actually going to be very bullish. I read a quote. It's sort of left field here a little bit, but President Abraham Lincoln was very much in favor of tariffs. Believe it or not, going back into the 1860s, he called it the quote unquote the American system. So, 100 years starting in 1828, tariffs worked very well for the country, and they're not new. There was the Smoot-Hawley Act back in the 1930s that imposed tariffs on about 20,000 goods. So it's not a new concept by any stretch. So that people sort of pointing to that as a negative, but and you also have the big positives like RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. coming in, trying to get rid of some of this corruption and big pharma and the FDA, which I've been a big advocate against for many, many years. I have this book written by Dr. Joe Wallach, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. I sort of put it into my newsletter at the end on every publication, about the corruption in the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm just so tickled pink that RFK is in there. For years he was, against vaccinations because of the mercury and other elements in the injections which harm people. I've had the relatives that actually suffered from injections after birth. The television commercials ad nauseum, I'm sure you've seen those, promoting drugs, which years past was not allowed, and they make it entertainment with musical jingles and people dancing on the screen. Well, these things, and even if you listen to the commercials, all the side effects, which can be deadly, are part of it. There's marketing of drugs. I mean, I'm into, I don't take any drugs. I'm into naturopathic stuff, and I'm relatively pretty healthy for my age, and others that I've seen take drugs are very sick because of the side effects. So the FDA is criminal in what they did here. So if RFK can do something about that, and change things a little bit, I think that would be, or change things a lot, that would be really terrific. So you have that positive. Of course, some of the drug company stocks have started to come down. Eli Lilly, which was really strong, it had that weight control thing. I think the stock dropped a couple hundred points here, and just recently, being short, we were short a couple drug stocks, on a play that they would see some reaction here if we get some changes made to the FDA and the way these things are approved. So, what can I say? It's a positive tidal wave. I think it's positive for the market going forward. The sky's the limit on the S&P and the Dow Industrials and all the markets. Obviously, you have to focus on things that are moving. A lot of the high tech is gotten extended. Google is being challenged by the Department of Justice here on some antitrust and other accusations. They want to not break up the company, but they want to Google to divest itself of some of the activities they're in. NVIDIA, of course, is the big hot stock of all time. In the last few years, it made a new high again today. And the chips and all that are still hot and in demand. So there are things that you can you can focus on, and there's still plenty of opportunity out there. So I guess the AI, the high tech area, the semiconductor area, that's going to continue strong. And in recent sessions, we've seen some of the Magnificent Seven stocks, with the exception of NVIDIA, pull back here a little bit. Of course, they got way extended, but other components of the market are moving higher. So you're seeing, other names go higher, like United Healthcare stock was up, and Costco, and some of the Target was down, though, unfortunately, but Walmart's been doing well. So there's a lot of, positive things in the market, and always the key is you want to be diversified too. But, there's a strong economy, lower interest rates, potentially lower taxes, not taxing Social Security, which unfortunately Ronald Reagan was involved with going back, a few decades, where he, approved that, which prior to that time it wasn't taxable. But that's going to if that's taken off, that would put a lot more money into people's pockets. So, look at the strength we've seen in Bitcoin. It didn't quite get to $100,000 a coin. It got to $98,000 here in the last couple days. Trump's comments are very supportive of crypto. So the whole crypto sphere took off. All the names really exploded here to the upside, some doubling or tripling in price. And of course you're seeing the Bitcoin up, was almost 50% here in recent week or couple of weeks. So that's a pro-business viewpoint because Bitcoin is a mode of commerce. It's used internationally. You have this guy Gary Gensler at the Securities and Exchange Commission, who's been a real pain in the ass to the crypto industry. Putting his thumb down on the XRP crypto. It had lawsuits filed against Ripple, which is the parent company there. Meanwhile, the stock is not publicly traded, but the XRP itself doubled here in recent sessions because I'm sure Gensler is going to be out the door once Trump is in there, as a lot of other very poor federal employees that have done a very poor job in running various agencies. So, it just, again, I keep saying tidal wave of change. It just was something that, unfortunately, if he didn't get in, things would be pretty doom and gloom for the U.S. Economy. So, I think that's a big positive. So anyway, I'm overall bullish. We trade. There are swings in the market. We are in a seasonally positive time of year. You have here in the U.S. that, let's call it Yale Hurst, that came up with this going back, 40, 50 years ago, the turkey shoot around Thanksgiving, where you tend to get a rally day before, day after Thanksgiving, regardless of what the market's doing. You get the Santa Claus rally, the New Year. So God willing, Trump is okay. Nothing happens to him. I know there's a lot of vicious attacks out there among his political enemies, both verbal and physical. But we saw the physical ones, recent attempts on his life. But God willing, everything is okay with him. I think we're in good shape. And I really think he's going to be a peacemaker. I think in terms of Ukraine, in terms of the Middle East, maybe even with regard to China and North Korea, I think he's the man. What's his name? Sylvester Stallone. You probably saw this article, Jim. He was at the Mar-a-Lago dinner, and he comes up to Trump. I actually put the video in on my web page, and he compared Donald Trump to George Washington. I think he said he was a second George Washington in terms of his potential effect on the country. And I think that really is the case. So look what Trump did with regard to the Middle East when he was president. He got the Abraham Accords approved. Several Arab nations agreed to settle and have peace and business dealings with Israel, which heretofore did not happen. Moving the embassy into Jerusalem, the U.S. embassy into Jerusalem, which was promised by many former U.S. presidents, which never, ever happened. So I think you're going to see, political stability around the world here because they knew they were dealing with a weakling, Biden, and it's not him; it's his advisors. He's just an old guy who had all kinds of mental issues, deterioration with age, and a wife, unfortunately, who was probably a henpecked person who was probably controlling the White House because she was even at some of the cabinet meetings I heard recently or saw recently. So it really wasn't him; it was his advisors, people that are looking for war, whether it's the military-industrial complex, however you want to describe it. So very poor advisors, very pro-Marxist, anti-American advisors and associates, unfortunately, affected his performance both politically, socially, economically, and now things, I think, are really, fortunately, have changed for the better. So that's sort of my summary. I'm overall optimistic. Take it day to day, which stocks or which sectors you want to be trading in. But I think if you own the major indexes, whether the S&P, or the NASDAQ or the total stock market index overall, they should do okay, I think, moving ahead. Now, remember, there are always corrections. I remember when Ronald Reagan was in, we had the crash in 1987. It happened during his administration, despite all the positives that he invoked, because you had other things going on. You had Alan Greenspan in there controlling the Fed, and he wasn't too good at his job either. And of course, we saw that with Jay Powell running the Fed here in the last 10 or 15 years. So, some bad actors, bad decisions that were outside of Reagan's control, probably had a lot to do with the crash then, but it still came under his watch. So we always have to be wary that, there could be some, outlier event, as I mentioned earlier, extraordinary event that could change the market short term. But I think the overall picture should be positive. So I've given you a long-winded response. Hopefully that gets us going and focuses on what the future may be like.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. What's the story on gold?
Okay, well, it's not going anywhere. I mean, it's there. It's been there for thousands of years, and it's still, central banks have still been out there accumulating it. One of the reasons the dollar has been strong, because apparently part of the process of accumulating the gold, the transactions have to be done in U.S. dollars, which will continue to support the dollar. In fact, I'm bullish on the dollar, which is a whole separate question you might ask anyway, just because of the economic improvements that we're going to start seeing here in the U.S. But part of the reason gold has been elevated is because of geopolitical uncertainty. It took off after the Hamas invasion in Israel last October. So it's cooling down a little bit because it had to do more reaction to geopolitical than economic factors. Inflation supposedly, even though it's still high, has pulled back a little bit. So we can't believe the inflation numbers the government has reported to us. They were much higher, but there seems to be some easing there. So the reason to own gold is more of a long-term hedge against some kind of extraordinary geopolitical or economic event. And it's always good to have some, but it got overextended. I was originally, if you recall, looking for about 2,700 as a target going back last year. We got to 2,800, and we've had periods of 300 to 500 point corrections in gold in the last couple decades. We may be in that time frame possibly, so you have to sort of be aware that it got overdone to the upside. I do have a bigger picture target of 3,700, but I don't know if that's 1 year or 10 years. We just got to watch the charts and see what's happening here. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, if there's some type of extraordinary outlier event or something hits, that could change things, pretty dramatically. So gold is less reason to own gold now than it was before Trump came in, is what I'm saying. Now, he's very positive on gold, and BRICS is still out there. They really didn't do anything in that Russian meeting that they had in September. Just a lot of talk. There's been no new currency backed by gold created. There's a lot of talk about that. The potential destruction of the dollar. That's not happening so fast now, particularly with Trump's in the White House. So I still keep the coins in the vault. I still trade. We've been trading actually a little bit on the short side with a couple inverse ETFs. I think I mentioned that in the previous interview, in and out occasionally on a couple trades, trying to keep some core position in there because I guess the big picture potential, and also having it as a little bit of a hedge. It's always good to have that anyway. But the big play was Bitcoin. It seems like all the gold bugs and all the speculators, jumped into crypto here in recent years. And, crypto wasn't around. Gold probably would have been a lot higher than it got on this move, but a lot of that money was diverted into Bitcoin and XRP and Ethereum and thousands of other small, blockchain crypto speculations. So that area is getting stronger, and in a way that sort of diverts interest away from gold. So philosophically I'm bullish overall, but it has less reason to explode here than it did prior to the election.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters. He was speaking to us from Arizona. If you have any questions for Mark or for any of our guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.